Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Would she ever see him again? It had been 2 days since Emma had made a fool of herself. She couldn't stop thinking about Liam and how quickly the encounter had spiraled out of control. It was supposed to be a simple blind date, and now, here she was, replaying every word she said in her head, cringing at the thought of how she must have looked. She could still see his calm expression as he let her walk away, too polite to correct her right away, and that smile of his. Almost like he knew exactly what was going on but didn't want to make her feel worse. Sighing, Emma stood up from the couch, brushing the crumbs of her quick breakfast off her lap. She had to move on. She had a busy day ahead with work, her late shift at the diner, and maybe, just maybe, getting closer to that elusive art studio of hers. But as she stepped out into the crisp morning air, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Startled, she pulled it out. The screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened it. "Hi Emma, this is Liam. I was the guy at the restaurant the other night. I know it was a mix-up, but I'd like to see you again. Coffee, maybe." Emma's fingers froze on the screen, her mind racing. Was this a joke? Or had he really meant to reach out? She hadn't expected to hear from him again, not after she had practically run out of the train station like a lunatic. She stared at the message, unsure whether to respond. Part of her wanted to laugh it off, call it all a big misunderstanding, and move on. But another part of her, one that had been craving a connection for so long, felt a flicker of hope. "Okay," she typed after a long pause. "Coffee sounds nice." She hit send and immediately regretted it. What was she doing? She didn't even know this guy. For all she knew, this was just some cruel joke. But then again, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was exactly what she needed, something to shake up her dull, routine life. The next morning, Emma found herself sitting nervously at a cozy little coffee shop, waiting for Liam to arrive. She had never been here before, but something about it felt different, a little less frantic, a little more like the kind of place where real conversations could happen. Her phone buzzed again. It was a message from Liam. "I'm here, sitting by the window. You can't miss me." Emma took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The bell above the door jingled softly as she walked inside, scanning the room. She spotted him immediately. He was sitting by the window, casually sipping a coffee. He looked relaxed, almost too relaxed, in contrast to how she felt, which was anything but calm. "Hi," Emma said, her voice a little shaky as she walked up to him. "I hope I'm not too late." Liam looked up and smiled warmly, making her feel like she wasn't so out of place. "Not at all," he said, his voice smooth and steady. "I'm just glad you agreed to meet me." She sat down across from him, still unsure of what to expect. She had imagined this moment over and over, but now that it was real, it felt surreal. "I'm glad you reached out," she said after a brief pause, trying to find her footing. "I didn't expect to hear from you again, after the train incident." Liam chuckled softly, his eyes sparkling with amusement. "I didn't think you'd want to talk to me after that either," he admitted. "But honestly, there was something about you. You seemed different." Emma tilted her head, her curiosity piqued. "Different? How?" Liam leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "You weren't like the other people I meet, always looking for something. You were just real." It was refreshing. Emma blinked, trying to process what he was saying. No one had ever described her that way before. She was used to people seeing her as nothing more than a waitress, a girl trying to make ends meet. To hear someone say she was real felt like a compliment she wasn't sure she deserved. "Thanks," she said quietly, her voice soft. "I think I'm just tired of pretending to be someone I'm not." Liam's gaze softened, and for a moment, Emma felt like he truly understood her. It was strange, this feeling of being seen. In a world that had always made her feel invisible, here was a man who, for reasons she didn't fully understand, seemed to care. They spent the next hour talking, about everything and nothing at all. Emma shared her dreams of becoming an artist, of one day opening her own studio. She told him about her struggles, about the long shifts at the diner, and how she was just trying to keep her head above water. In return, Liam told her about his work in tech, about the pressures of his career, and how he often felt like he was living a life that wasn't truly his own. It was an easy conversation, one that made Emma forget for a moment about the world outside. The pressure of her bills, her unfulfilled dreams, her mounting responsibilities, all of it seemed distant, as if this coffee was all that mattered. As they finished their drinks, Liam smiled at her, his eyes warm and inviting. "I know this is a little sudden, but would you like to come with me to a charity event next week? It's for a cause I'm really passionate about. I think you'd enjoy it." Emma hesitated. She wasn't used to being invited to these kinds of things, events where people dressed up and talked about high society matters. But something in Liam's invitation made her want to say yes. "I'd like that," she said, finally allowing herself to feel a little hopeful. As she left the coffee shop, she couldn't help but smile to herself. Maybe this was the start of something new, a real connection, not built on the expectations of others, but on something genuine. For the first time in a long time, Emma allowed herself to believe in possibilities. The week flew by faster than Emma expected. She had been working long hours at the diner, barely finding time to rest, but her mind often wandered back to Liam. She couldn't shake the thought of him. The way he made her feel like she was worth more than just her job, more than just the bills she had to pay every month. It was a strange feeling, but one that warmed her heart whenever she thought of him. The night of the charity event arrived faster than she realized. Emma stood in front of her small mirror, adjusting the dress she had borrowed from her friend, Jenny. It was nothing fancy, but she hoped it would be enough. She had always struggled with the idea of fitting into a world that seemed so far out of her reach. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like a chance, not just for a new connection, but for something that could change the course of her life. When she arrived at the venue, she was struck by the size of it. The grand ballroom was adorned with elegant chandeliers, their soft glow casting a warm light over the guests who were mingling, sipping champagne, and engaging in conversations that sounded like they belonged to a world far removed from her own. Emma swallowed hard. She felt like an outsider in this place, but Liam's invitation had given her the courage to step inside. Her nerves were starting to kick in as she scanned the crowd for Liam. She was about to reach for her phone when she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned around and saw him standing there, looking every bit the part of the successful businessman in his tailored suit. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and his smile was so warm that it immediately put her at ease. "Emma, you made it," he said, his voice carrying a hint of genuine excitement. "You look amazing." Emma felt a rush of warmth spread through her at his compliment, but she quickly tried to brush it off with a nervous laugh. I wasn't sure what to expect. This is all a bit overwhelming." Liam chuckled, leading her into the crowd. "I get that. It's not everyone's scene, but I think you'll find it interesting. It's a chance to meet some incredible people who are doing amazing things." They spent the next few hours walking through the event, Emma feeling more and more comfortable in Liam's presence. He introduced her to a few people, each conversation a little easier than the last. Still, there were moments when she caught herself wondering if she really belonged here, in a room full of people whose lives seemed so much more polished and put together than hers. At one point, Liam excused himself to talk to a group of potential business partners, leaving Emma standing alone near a display of donated art. She felt her insecurities creeping back in, and for a moment, she was tempted to leave. But before she could make a decision, a voice behind her spoke up. "You're Emma, right?" She turned around and was surprised to see a woman standing there, smiling at her. The woman was dressed in a stunning black gown, her hair styled elegantly. She looked every bit the part of a socialite, and Emma couldn't help but feel a bit out of place. "Yes, I am," Emma said, her voice slightly hesitant. "I'm Claire," the woman replied, extending her hand. "I couldn't help but notice you were with Liam. He's a very important person in this city, you know." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure where this conversation was headed, but something about Claire's tone made her feel uncomfortable, like she was being sized up. He's been very kind to me," Emma replied, not sure how much to say. Claire's smile widened. "Kind, yes. But Liam doesn't just let anyone into his world. You must have really made an impression." Emma was about to respond when she noticed Liam walking back toward her, his face lighting up when he saw her. He quickly made his way over, his presence almost immediately easing her discomfort. "Claire, so nice to see you," Liam said, greeting the woman with a handshake. Emma, I'd like you to meet Claire. She's one of the key people behind tonight's event. Emma smiled awkwardly, nodding politely at Claire. It's nice to meet you, she said, trying to sound confident. Claire returned the smile, but it was the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Likewise, Claire said, before turning back to Liam. I'll let you two enjoy the event. But Liam, I'll see you soon. We need to talk. With that, Claire walked away, leaving Emma with a feeling of unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that Claire's words had meant more than she had let on. But before she could dwell on it too much, Liam turned to her, his smile bright and genuine. Don't mind her, he said. She's a bit intense, but she means well. Let's go grab a drink. I think you've earned it. After this whirlwind evening, Emma followed Liam to the bar, still feeling a little unsettled by Claire's words, but grateful for Liam's company. As they sat down with their drinks, Liam turned to her, his expression serious. I'm glad you came tonight, he said, his voice softer. I know this is all new for you, but I want you to know that you're not just here because of some business deal or charity event. I asked you here because I wanted to spend time with you, to get to know you better. I think you're incredible, Emma. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to say something like that, not in a room full of people who seemed to live in a world so different from hers. I think you're incredible too, she said, her voice almost a whisper. They shared a moment of quiet understanding, the noise of the event fading into the background as they sat there together. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she wasn't just an outsider. She felt like she belonged, right here, with him. As the night wore on, the hum of conversation and clinking of glasses filled the grand ballroom. But for Emma, it felt like time had slowed. She and Liam had moved from one corner of the room to another, chatting and laughing like they had known each other for years, rather than just a few days. The more they talked, the more Emma felt an overwhelming sense of connection, as though the world had narrowed down to just the two of them in that moment. She hadn't realized how much she'd missed genuine human connection until Liam came along. There was something about him, his kindness, his quiet confidence, that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't before. It wasn't just his charm or his wealth. It was his willingness to share pieces of himself with her, to let her into a life that seemed so far removed from hers. At the same time, Emma couldn't help but wonder, was this real? Was she just another person in his life that he was casually entertaining? The doubts crept in, but she pushed them aside, reminding herself that for tonight, she could just enjoy being with him, without overthinking everything. They were standing near the edge of the ballroom when Liam turned to her, his gaze softening. I'm glad you came tonight, he said, his voice low, as if he was sharing something important. I know it's a little overwhelming, all of this, but I really want you to know, Emma, that I'm not just asking you to come to these events because it's convenient for me. I invited you because I enjoy spending time with you. You're different from anyone I've met. Her heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure what he meant by different, but the way he said it made her feel like she mattered. She wasn't just some plus one at a gala, and she wasn't some temporary distraction. She felt real to him. I'm glad you feel that way, Emma said softly, looking up at him. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but she hoped he could hear the sincerity in her words. I didn't expect any of this. I mean, you, this event, it's all kind of a dream. Liam smiled, his eyes softening as he reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. Well, I'm glad you're here with me, he said, his voice warm. I've been running my company for so long, focusing on work, and I didn't realize how much I was missing out on. Meeting someone like you, someone who doesn't just want something from me, someone who just wants to be themselves. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She wasn't used to hearing those kinds of words, not from anyone. She didn't want to get ahead of herself, but she couldn't deny the way his words made her feel, like she was more than just the job she had, more than just the struggles she faced. She was someone worth spending time with. Before she could respond, a voice cut through the air. Liam. It was a woman's voice, sharp and demanding. Emma turned to see a tall, elegant woman approaching them. Her icy blue eyes narrowed slightly as she scanned Emma, then looked back at Liam. There you are. I've been looking for you. Liam stiffened slightly, his expression hardening just a bit. Claire, I was just talking with Emma, he said, his voice neutral. You can wait a minute. Claire, the woman who had briefly spoken to Emma earlier in the evening, smiled politely, but her eyes held a hint of something more, something Emma couldn't quite place. Of course, she said, her tone laced with an edge. But we really need to talk, Liam. You know how important this deal is. Emma felt a twinge of discomfort. It wasn't just the tension in the air, but the way Claire seemed to look at her, sizing her up in a way that made Emma feel like an outsider. She shifted uncomfortably, trying to maintain her composure. Liam glanced at Emma, then back at Claire. I'll be there in a minute, he said firmly, as though this was a conversation he didn't want to have right now. Just give me a second. Claire hesitated for a moment, then nodded and walked away, but not before casting one more look at Emma. Emma couldn't help but feel that something was off, that there was something about Claire she didn't quite understand. But before she could dwell on it, Liam turned to her again, his expression softer. Don't mind her, he said with a small sigh. Claire's a close colleague of mine. She has her own agenda, but it's not anything I can't handle. Emma nodded, though she still felt a little uneasy. She seems intense, she said, trying to keep the conversation light. Liam chuckled, clearly understanding her unease. She's just persistent. But honestly, don't worry about it. Let's focus on enjoying the night. It's been great getting to know you, Emma. They walked to the edge of the ballroom, away from the busy crowd. The music filled the air, but it felt like they were in their own little world. Emma felt a strange sense of calm when she was with him, as though nothing else mattered. As they stood there, Liam leaned slightly toward her, his voice soft. Emma, I have to be honest with you. I've been thinking a lot about our conversations, and I think you're amazing. I know this might sound sudden, but I want to take things further. Maybe we can see each other more? Outside of all this. Outside of the company events. Emma's heart skipped again. She hadn't expected this. Not this quickly, but the sincerity in his voice made her think twice. She smiled, her nerves fading as she met his gaze. I'd like that, she said, her voice steady now, her heart full of hope. I'd like that very much. And just like that, Emma realized that maybe, just maybe, this unexpected night, this mix-up with the train, was exactly the turning point she needed in her life. Over the next few weeks, Emma found herself adjusting to a life she never thought she'd experience. Liam had become a regular part of her days, his messages popping up on her phone at the most unexpected moments. They went out for coffee on lazy Sundays, grabbed lunch during her breaks at the diner, and even spent evenings walking through the park, talking about everything and nothing. Emma was starting to feel something she hadn't in a long time: hope. At the same time, she couldn't ignore the reality of her situation. Her financial struggles were still there, looming over her. The art studio was still a dream, not a plan. And yet, with Liam, everything felt possible. He made her feel like she was worth more than just a paycheck or a ticket to a better life. He saw her for who she was, not what she could offer. But as much as she wanted to believe that what they were building was real, doubts crept in. She couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she was just another part of his world, another pretty face on his arm at events. And what would happen if he ever really saw the mess that was her life? What if he saw the truth behind her carefully constructed image? The thought gnawed at her, but for the moment, she pushed it away. She didn't want to think about it. She wanted to enjoy the feeling of his presence, the warmth of his smile, the way his laugh made her feel like she belonged. One afternoon, as they were walking through the city, Emma and Liam found themselves near a small gallery that had just opened. I've always wanted to come here, Emma said, her eyes lighting up as she looked at the paintings on display. I've been dreaming of opening my own place someday, but it seems so far away. Liam glanced at her, his gaze thoughtful. You know, you should go for it. You've got the passion, Emma. You deserve to follow that dream. Emma's heart fluttered at his words. She had always known deep down that her art was the only thing that made her feel truly alive, but hearing him say it, with that kind of belief in her, felt different. It made her think that, maybe, just maybe, she could make it happen. But as they walked through the gallery, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, and her heart sank. It was an email from her landlord. Final notice: rent due in 5 days. Emma's stomach dropped. 5 days. She had nothing. She hadn't been able to save, and she didn't know what she was going to do. Her dream of an art studio, of finding some kind of stability, felt more distant than ever. She tried to hide the anxiety on her face, but Liam noticed. Is everything okay? He asked, his voice full of concern. Emma hesitated for a moment, but then she took a deep breath. It's just, my rent is due, and I don't have enough. I've been struggling to make ends meet, and I don't know what I'm going to do if I can't pay it. Liam's expression softened, and for a moment, Emma saw the weight of the world in his eyes. Emma, why didn't you say something sooner? She shook her head. I didn't want to bother you with it. I thought I could figure it out on my own. Liam reached out, gently taking her hand in his. You don't have to figure it out alone. Let me help. Emma felt a lump form in her throat. She had never been good at asking for help, especially from someone like him. But in that moment, as he stood there, offering his support, she realized that maybe she didn't always have to do everything on her own. Maybe it was okay to let someone in, to lean on them. I can't accept that, Emma said, pulling her hand back slightly. I don't want to take your money, Liam. It wouldn't feel right. He frowned, stepping closer to her. Emma, I'm not offering you money. I'm offering you a chance. A chance to stop worrying about this for once. You deserve to have a life where you can focus on what matters, your art, your dreams. Let me help you make that happen. Emma looked at him, her chest tightening. She wanted to say yes, but a part of her was terrified. Terrified of depending on him, of letting him into the mess that was her life. What if he saw how unworthy she felt? What if he saw how little she had? But then she realized she didn't want to lose this chance to build a future for herself. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be perfect for him to care. Okay, she said quietly, finally allowing herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could let someone help her. Okay, I'll accept your help. Liam smiled, the warmth in his eyes bringing a sense of relief to Emma. You don't have to thank me, he said softly. I'm doing this because I believe in you, Emma, and I want to see you succeed. As they stood there, Emma realized that this was more than just a chance to get out of her financial hole. It was a chance to build something real, a life, a future, with someone who saw her for who she truly was, not for what she could give. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was on the right path. It had been a few weeks since Emma accepted Liam's offer, and things were starting to shift in ways she had never imagined. Liam had helped her with her rent, just like he promised, but it wasn't just the financial help that had made the biggest difference. He had encouraged her to take a step back from her day-to-day struggles and focus on her art. It felt like she had permission to dream again, something she hadn't allowed herself to do in years. Emma had started sketching again, pouring her thoughts onto paper in a way that felt liberating. She even started looking into art spaces in the city, considering the possibility of renting her own studio someday. Every time she thought about it, she felt a spark of excitement in her chest, something she hadn't felt in ages. And then there was Liam. Their relationship had grown, slowly but surely. The time they spent together wasn't just about business events or charity galas anymore. They began to share their lives more, intimate dinners at his place, casual walks through the city, talks about their futures. Emma realized she was letting herself fall for him, and she didn't know if she was ready for it. She was still haunted by the feeling that it could all be too good to be true, that this was just another chapter in her life, where things looked great on the outside, but fell apart as soon as she got too close. One evening, as they walked through a park near Liam's apartment, Emma found herself fighting the pull of her own thoughts. The sky was dimming, the last traces of sunlight casting a soft glow over the city. Liam was quiet beside her, his hand brushing against hers. She could feel the warmth of his touch, and for a moment, everything felt right. Liam, I've been thinking, she began, her voice hesitant, unsure of how to bring up what had been on her mind for days. About us. About what this is. Liam stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression calm but attentive. What do you mean? Emma bit her lip, feeling the familiar fear of vulnerability creep up her spine. I'm not used to this. To someone actually caring about me, not for what I can do for them, but for who I am. I don't want to mess this up. Liam reached out, gently taking her hands in his. Emma, you're not going to mess this up. I care about you for you, not because of anything else. I've never met anyone like you. You make me want to be better, to be a part of something real. Emma's heart fluttered at his words, but the doubt that had been eating at her heart for weeks began to resurface. But what if I'm not enough? What if you see all of the things I'm struggling with and decide you can't handle it? Liam smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I don't care about your struggles, Emma. I care about you. And I know you've been through a lot, but that doesn't change how I feel about you. We're in this together, okay? For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she was finally being seen for who she truly was. And it was terrifying, because it felt too good to be true. But at that moment, standing in the park with Liam, something shifted inside her. She realized that maybe, just maybe, she could let go of the fear and allow herself to trust him, and herself. They continued walking, the weight of their conversation settling between them, but there was also a sense of peace in the air. Emma didn't have all the answers, but she didn't need to have them right. Now, she had Liam by her side, and for the first time in a long time, that was enough. A few days later, Emma received an email that made her heart skip a beat. She had been selected for a grant from a local foundation to help fund her art studio dream. It was the break she had been waiting for, the sign that everything she had worked for was finally paying off. When she told Liam, his face lit up with pride. "I knew you could do it," he said, wrapping her in a tight hug. "You deserve this, Emma. You've worked so hard, and I'm so proud of you." In that moment, Emma realized that this was only the beginning. The dream she had thought was so far out of reach was now becoming a reality. But more than that, she realized that her life was no longer defined by her struggles. She was building something for herself, something real. And with Liam by her side, she didn't feel so alone anymore. As they stood there, in his apartment, the city lights glowing outside, Emma felt the future unfolding before her, full of possibilities. And for the first time in a long time, she was ready to embrace it. It had been a month since Emma received the grant, and things were finally starting to come together. Her dream of owning her own art studio felt closer than ever. The walls of her tiny apartment were now covered in sketches and plans for what she hoped would soon be a thriving space for artists. Liam had been by her side every step of the way, offering his encouragement, but more than that, he had made her believe in herself again. She no longer felt like the person who was always just one step away from falling behind. She felt empowered, as though she could actually make it, and it was all because of Liam. One evening, as they sat together at a local cafe, Emma smiled at Liam over her coffee. The warmth of the drink was comforting, but it was nothing compared to the warmth she felt whenever he was near. They had been spending more and more time together, but lately, there was a growing sense of anticipation in the air. She could feel it, the tension that lingered just beneath the surface, the question that had been hanging in the back of her mind for a while now. What were they? Liam was the first to break the silence. "Emma, I've been thinking a lot about us lately," he said, his voice steady but filled with something Emma couldn't quite place. "I know we've been taking things slow, but I want you to know that you mean more to me than just a friend, or even just someone I'm helping out." Emma felt her heart skip a beat. She had been wondering the same thing, but hearing him say it out loud was different. She set her cup down gently and leaned in, her eyes meeting his. "Liam, I feel the same way," she said softly. "I know I've been holding back, but I've never felt this way before. I'm just scared. I've never really let anyone in, and now, I don't want to mess things up." Liam reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. "You don't have to be scared, Emma. I care about you, and I'm not going anywhere. I've wanted this, wanted you for a long time." The world seemed to pause for a moment, and Emma felt a weight lift from her chest. The uncertainty that had been building up inside her seemed to fade away, replaced by a certainty that she hadn't known she could have. She smiled, her eyes softening as she squeezed his hand. "I don't want to mess this up either," she whispered, the words coming more easily now. "But I think I'm ready to take the next step with you, if you are." Liam's smile grew wider, and Emma could see the relief in his eyes. "I'm more than ready," he said. "Let's do this, together." The air between them was electric, and for the first time, Emma felt like she wasn't just dreaming about a future, she was building it. With Liam by her side, everything seemed possible. She wasn't just a waitress anymore, struggling to make ends meet. She was someone with a future, someone who had love, support, and a dream that was no longer out of reach. As they stood to leave the cafe, Liam pulled her close, his lips brushing against her forehead in a tender kiss. Emma closed her eyes, letting the moment wash over her, feeling the warmth of his embrace, knowing that this was just the beginning. The next few months were a blur of activity, with Emma working hard to get her art studio up and running. With Liam's help, the process was smoother than she could have imagined. He introduced her to people in the art world, helped with the financial side, and even came up with creative ideas for marketing the studio. He was everything she needed, and more. One evening, As they sat on the rooftop of Liam's apartment, watching the sunset, Emma realized that she had never felt so content in her life. The future was no longer something to fear, it was something to look forward to. She had found love, yes, but she had also found herself again. "Thank you," Emma said, her voice soft. "For everything. For believing in me." Liam smiled, his hand resting gently on hers. "I didn't just believe in you, Emma. I always knew you had this in you." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Emma looked out over the city, her heart full. She had come so far from the woman who was lost and unsure of herself. Now, with Liam by her side, she knew she was ready to face whatever came next. The life she had dreamed of was no longer a distant fantasy, it was real, and it was hers. The grand opening of Emma's art studio arrived faster than she had expected. For months, it had been nothing but sketches, planning, and paperwork, but now it was real. Her dream had come to life. She stood in the middle of the newly decorated space, surrounded by canvases and artwork from local artists, some of whom had become close friends through the connections Liam had helped her make. The walls were covered with vibrant colors, and the room was filled with the hum of excited chatter from the guests who had come to support her. Liam stood beside her, a proud smile on his face as he observed the crowd. Emma could feel his eyes on her, and for a moment, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. She had come so far, and it was all because of him, the man who had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. "You did it, Emma," Liam said, his voice soft as he turned to her. "This place looks incredible." Emma smiled, her heart full. "We did it," she corrected, looking at him with a mix of appreciation and affection. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." He chuckled and gently took her hand in his. "I'm just glad I could be a part of it. You deserve this. You've worked so hard to make your dream a reality." For a moment, Emma didn't know what to say. She was overwhelmed with emotion, her heart bursting with pride and joy. She had never imagined that this day would come, that she would stand in the very space she had once only dreamed about. And yet, here she was, surrounded by the people who supported her, with Liam at her side. I can't believe this is happening," Emma said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "It feels like a dream." Liam smiled, stepping closer to her. "It's your reality now, Emma. And it's just the beginning." As the evening went on, the gallery filled with more guests, laughter, and praise for Emma's work. The art studio was everything she had hoped for and more. She felt like she was finally stepping into the life she had always dreamed of. And as she moved through the crowd, talking to people, sharing her vision, she realized that it wasn't just the studio that had changed, it was her. She was no longer the woman who doubted herself, the woman who wasn't sure where she fit in. She was a woman who had found her place, not just in the art world, but in her own heart. Later in the evening, as the crowd began to thin out, Emma found herself standing on the balcony of the studio, looking out over the city. The night was calm, and the lights of the skyline seemed to mirror the stars above. Liam joined her, standing beside her and offering her a glass of champagne. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. Emma smiled, clinking her glass against his. "To new beginnings," she repeated, her voice soft. They stood there for a while, the sounds of the evening still lingering in the air. Emma felt like the world was at her feet. She had built this life, step by step, with the support of the people who cared about her. And Liam had been her constant, her anchor through all of it. As the night drew to a close, Liam turned to her, his eyes filled with something deeper, something Emma hadn't expected but had begun to feel growing between them. "Emma, there's something I've been meaning to say," he began, his voice a little more serious now. "I've been thinking about this for a while. I know we've been taking things slow, but I want you to know that I'm in this for the long haul. I want to be with you, not just now, but for whatever comes next." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't been expecting this, but hearing the sincerity in his voice made her feel like she was finally ready to take the leap, to let go of the fears that had held her back. She stepped closer to him, her hand reaching for his. "I want that too, Liam," she said softly. "I'm ready." He smiled, pulling her into a gentle embrace. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Emma realized that she wasn't just building her future in this studio. She was building it with Liam. Together, they were creating something real, something lasting. And for the first time in her life, Emma felt like everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. Months passed, and Emma's life continued to unfold in ways she had never dreamed possible. Her art studio was thriving, becoming a hub for creativity and a place where she could share her passion with others. With every new painting, every new artist she showcased, Emma felt like she was not only building a business, but building a life that was truly hers. The support she had received from Liam had made all of this possible. But more than that, he had shown her that she was worthy of success, of love, and of happiness. One evening, as the studio was closing for the night, Emma was tidying up when she received a message from Liam. It was simple. Meet me at the rooftop in 10 minutes. I have a surprise for you. Her heart skipped a beat. She had no idea what he had planned, but the excitement of it made her feel like a teenager again, waiting for a date with someone who made her feel alive. She quickly finished cleaning and made her way to the rooftop. The city lights sparkled below her, and the cool evening air felt refreshing against her skin. She looked around, wondering where Liam was, when suddenly she heard his voice. "You look amazing as always," Liam said, stepping out from behind a large potted plant, his smile lighting up the night. Emma laughed, her heart lifting at the sight of him. "What's the surprise?" she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. Liam walked over to her, taking her hand gently in his. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything we've built together," he said softly. "And I realized that I want to build even more with you. I want to be with you, not just now, but forever." Emma's breath caught in her throat as he knelt down in front of her, pulling out a small velvet box. He opened it to reveal a stunning ring, one that sparkled in the dim light of the city. "Emma, will you marry me?" Liam asked, his voice sincere and full of love. Tears filled Emma's eyes as she looked at the man who had become her partner, her best friend, and the love of her life. She had never imagined this moment, never believed that she, someone who had spent so many years struggling, could end up here, in a place filled with love and promise. She looked down at the ring, then back at Liam, her heart overwhelmed with emotion. "Yes," she whispered, her voice shaky with joy. "Yes, I'll marry you." Liam stood up, his face lighting up with the most beautiful smile Emma had ever seen. He pulled her into his arms, and they embraced under the stars, the city surrounding them. But in that moment, it was as if the world had disappeared. All that mattered was the love they had built together. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Emma realized that she had found her home, not in the studio, not in the success, but in Liam, in their shared life. She had found love when she least expected it, and in doing so, she had found a family she never knew she needed. The years ahead seemed full of possibility, of dreams, of love, and of new beginnings. But for now, Emma knew one thing for sure. She was where she was always meant to be, right here, with him. And so, with a heart full of hope, she looked up at the stars, knowing that her journey, their journey, was just beginning.